All right, guys, we got a semi-easy, semi-complicated one. I'm gonna say it's kind of complicated because I've never done optic plates or mounted optics onto a P320 with the Delta Point Pro footprint. And so I learned that if you're using a plate, or even if you're using the other optic, you have to mount the stuff from inside the underside of the slide and take a lot of the stuff off to get to the screws. I kind of didn't like that. That's kind of bugging me about the P320s here, but I'm hoping to love this gun. That's the new X-Five SXG. But I think any P320 with this Delta Point Pro and the rear adjustable sights, you're going to use the same plate anyway. This isn't for SXG. I think it was for the X5, and I'll put it up there. They'll put the graphic. I think it was for the X5 Legion, but it's the same, pretty much the same slide, same footprint, and same build. So I was worried about the rear sights are adjustable on here, and the plate is like, if you lose your rear sights when you take your optic cover plate, this is the one you want to get. But I was worried that because the rear sights on the cover are attached to it and they kind of float over the back of the slide, I was thinking that this adapter was going to be too long, and if it was straight, it was going to hit this little step right here that we have. But actually the plate, it is the correct one. So the rear sights that are built into the plate, it goes over that step, as you can see right there. So it does go up, and you got to install from the front to the back. And you see that right there is pretty much perfect. It's aligned perfect. It's nice and flush. These, you do got to come from the back and go in. It's got these little teeth here that you can see. And there's a groove in the front of the slide on these P320s. So you got to kind of get those two little bat ears, little bat wing mask ears in there, stick them in there, and then it'll just fall into place. And then those rear sights that are built into the plate with the step up, they just sit on the back of the slide. So I was worried that it was just straight across and it was going to bump that, but this is the correct one. And it's the SGX-RSH-10-8 model, and it fits perfect with this one. But there's some fitment things that I want to do, and then as we're going, you see there's no mag. We do have an empty gun. So there's some fitment things here. So these come with these little T-nuts, and these are going to come in from the bottom, and they fall in there flush, and then your optic sits in there, and then basically you're mounting your optic into the T-nut sleeve here. So it looks like these T-nut sleeves, they only send you one set. So my optic, when it was mounted on the gun, I had a larger screw. So like most instructions, if you're doing plates or adapters or anything like that, they always say get the screws that come with your optic. So I was using these larger ones because this was a direct slide mount to another pistol. But I know the size. I was kind of checking everything before I started this video, and gladly the optic I'm using is Gideon. This is a Gideon Omega, which is really, really good for indoors. I used it outdoors and I had trouble picking it up in the sunlight. So this is just going to be temporary until I get the Sig Max 3 Pro or whatever. That's on back order. But the size that fits these little T-nut sleeves is the 440 by 250, 0.250. So they're really skinny screws, as you can see, and they're going to fit perfect into the T-nut. And it is a T10 as far as the Gideon. I think most optics use the Torx screws nowadays. But again, this is the size that's going to fit into the T-nuts that they provide that have to be used. So luckily Gideon sent me these spare screws, right? All optics usually will send you a bunch of different screws. So if you're using this exact same setup in a P320 with these little T-nuts, the ones that you want to find that fit the optic into the T-nut, again, 4-40 by 0.250. It says nut diameter 5.5 millimeters, effective length 6.35 millimeters, and this is a T10. I think most of them are T10, but you just never know. So just check yours. So first you want to do a dry fit, right? You never want to just start installing stuff and then come into a problem that it doesn't fit or something's wrong. So you want to put that T-nut in there. It's got the little perfect spot for it. You can see it's going to fall flush. You want to hold that in there. And then we're just going to test fit this. So I'm putting that first little screw, and I already got my T10 out here. And you don't want to like super hand tight this thing yet. You just want to make sure that it grabs onto the T-nut, and it looks like it's pretty shallow. It's not going far, but it is catching, and you just want to make sure it doesn't pass the T-nut, right? So this is going to get tightened just a little bit, but I'm pretty confident that even though it's not going all the way flush, it is grabbing the threads. I felt the threads as I was going in, so it's going to get enough of them. If you want, you can dry test the second one, but I'm okay. If this first one fit good and it's on there, and with a little bit of blue Loctite on this after the fact, I'm sure that both of them are going to be fine. So always test fit your stuff, and then you want to just kind of dry fit this as well, and make sure, depending on your optic, you don't get any overhang when this brass is going to be ejecting. So like if this one, like especially like SRO types that have that little overhang where it goes forward from the base of the optic, you don't want that to be sitting above the the ejection area, and then you're gonna have a lot of issues, malfunctions, because that brass is gonna be hitting that optic. So you want to make sure that it's pretty much flush or even with that. You never want it to be over like that. You're gonna have issues, so keep an eye on that. But it looks like everything is gonna fit perfect. Not really sure why they even have this built in. I guess it depends on your optic, but this optic that I'm using is kind of thick. So if you're getting a low profile optic, you will be able to use these backup sights. But you see, I'm not going to be able to use them because this is such a high deck on this Omega that I can't even use that rear sight built into it. So that's just going to vary from optic to optic. All right. So we're going to go ahead and start to get this stuff installed and see how it goes. All right. So first things first, we need to go ahead and get the slide off. So you want to lock that on a P320, right? Your takedown lever goes forward, and then you want to release the slide stop, pull this bad boy off. There we go. There's a little stick. It's brand new, so there's a lot of friction. Take off your recoil spring. Let's get that out the way. Get your barrel out of there. And then you have our slide here. So from what I learned, and I'm not a big fan of right away, is one of these screws, and let's just show this. So you got those two screws right there. All right, so if you put your optic on, you see the optic is going to be mounting into these T-clamps, these two larger, let me see here. Trying to get you to see. Yeah, it's going to go into the two front ones. This is an RMR pattern. So this is going to these two, and these two holes here in the back is what's going to be mounted into the slide, and that's what's going to go through the bottom. So as you can see, where's the one? Where do we go here? Interesting. Oh, okay. So something I just found out, the cover plate is not going to mount the same way as the the adapter plate is not going to mount the same as the optic plate, because it looks like there's a hole here. You guys can see it. Let me get this. There's a hole here where I already took one of the screws off when I got rid of the cover plate, and then there's another hole here that you have to take the entire striker assembly out. You have to take the ejector out, because there's a screw behind that. But it looks like when you're looking at the plate, it covers that initial hole, so I'm assuming there's no need to use this one. But when you come up here, the optic is going to screw into these two. So it looks like we're just going to mount this adapter plate through the top here on these two screws. So I didn't even need to take off the slide, but that's going to be perfect. It looks like it's going to be these two bigger ones here, because these are all optic plates. These are very, so with the CNH, the CNH plate, it sends you technically 5 sets of screws. These that are labeled, the 4-40, these are optic screws that you could use these if you need them. And then it gives you 2 other sets, and it says one of them is also a 2.50 optic screws, and then there's these bigger ones. So all these 440s are for different actual optics in case you need them if you don't have screws with your optic. So this little one, they match the same diameter as these, and it's just not labeled. So I think all 4 of these are for optics, to mount your optic to the plate if you don't have your original optic screws. And then these are the only thick ones that are on here, which looks, this is a bigger hole. So these are going to be the screws, these little short thick ones that you're going to use to mount the plate to the slide. All right, so let's go ahead, let's drop these into our little magnetic area here. And then before we do that, we need to go ahead and put our T-nuts, little T-nuts here, little baby T-nuts. Okay, so want to keep that inverted, because if we fold this down, these T-nuts clamps are gonna fall out or whatever. So you want to do this upside down. So remember, I'm putting these teeth inside this little gap first, and then I'm just coming right through the top. And there you go. So now those little T-nuts are hanging. That's just so funny. The little T-nuts are in their spot. Make sure everything is flush, that they didn't move or fall out of place, that they are completely flush. And that is perfect. So now we're gonna use these little squatty little guys here that came with the C&H. This is to mount the plate to the slide. And they should be T10s as well. There they go. Yep. And let's just get this one started just a little bit. And let's go ahead and get the second one. It's already got the blue Loctite on there for you. Okay. Yeah, so these are much bigger that go onto the slide. So that's, I mean, it's pretty automatic that you're gonna know this one set of little thicker screws are used to mount the plate to the slide. All the others are just too skinny, and they're more for different optics to use to go into these little T-nut sleeves. And I just kind of do hand tight. Maybe there's a torque specification, but this is going to be temporary because again, I have a different optic coming on the way. That's a Delta Point Pro footprint, so I don't need to use this plate. But I'm impatient and I want to shoot a match this week. So that's why I went ahead and got the plate, and I'm sure eventually I may end up using it anyway if I switch to RMR again later on, if I don't like the SIG one. But that's it. So those two screws mount to the plate. Make sure there's no wobble. Again, you don't want to super hand, you don't want to tighten this as hard as you can. You don't want to strip anything. Just get it nice and hand tight. There's some blue Loctite. That should be good. And in shooting, if you feel some wobble, then you may want to come back, add some fresh Loctite, and then just kind of reinstall everything. All right, so here we go. Let's go ahead and drop our optic on there. Make sure we get a good fit. This is an RMR footprint, so you should have the little tree stumps and then the little nubs in here, or holes that fit over that. They call these recoil lugs. So when it's in place and they're in there, it's keeping it from wiggling around. So I've seen some people say some optics move, RMR, like I think Trijicon, I don't think they have the lugs, or some don't have the lugs. And sometimes they feel like those optics kind of wobble. So that's what these recoil lugs are for, because they fit inside of these holes and it kind of keeps it from sliding around if these start to get a little loose or something like that. All right, so those are in there. Everything is flush. Again, the ones that fit inside the little T-nuts are the 440.250. These came with my optic, so I'm gonna use these. And these are T10, so I'm gonna drop this guy in there. That's one, that's two. And let's go ahead and hold this in place. And let's just get this guy started a little bit so I kind of feel some pressure, and then I'm just kind of backing off. I don't want to start to tighten. You don't want to like, I forgot what the word is, but if you tighten one side, you could be kind of, making it kind of cockeyed where it leans on one, then you're trying to tighten the other one and it could cause some issues. So you want to tighten one and then go to the other before you start to really hand tighten these. And I believe the torque is like 10 to 12 pounds. Again, I just kind of like to do a little hand tight, at least for the first go around, to see how everything's working. And then later, if I'm having any issues, then I'll come back and torque to spec or whatever. All right. So again, if you like to do the torque to spec, I believe it's 10 to 12. It may be 10 to 15. And I'm thinking 12 because I think that's what I was going to settle on. It's right in the middle. And I am good with that. Two different screws. There we go. Nothing there is moving out of place. Again, I didn't even need to take off the slide on the P320. I just assumed I did, because to take the optic plate again, I had to get to the screws from underneath. So this is my first P320 that I'm really using in competition or overall in general. So I wasn't really familiar with that. So that's good to know going forward, that you don't need to take the slide off to add that adapter plate and an optic to that. All right. And trying to get this guy in here. I think I'm getting it kinked somewhere. All right, I usually like doing it from this direction anyway. I'm not sure why I was doing it the other way. I hate doing these things. There we go. There we go, nice and flush. Make sure nothing is crooked. Let's get this back onto the frame. There we go. Go ahead and lock that. Get your takedown lever back up. Drop your slide. Again, no magazine, no bullet. We're completely empty. Let me pull that trigger. Let me check the reset. Make sure everything is working. Always want to test function everything. Make sure you don't have any issues. Everything is good. We are good to go. There you go. That's how you mount that guy. Everything is working perfect. Make sure there's not wobble in there, which it's all good and nice and tight. I'm holding on to the slide. If you don't hold on to the slide and you're trying to test fit, I've seen some people say, man, it's wobbling. That's the slide wobbling on the frame. See, there we go. Nothing is moving. So there you go. There's the Gideon Omega. That's how you mount the new C&H plates using the T-nuts there. Nice and easy, not too bad. The trick is just kind of knowing what size screws. So I had the benefit of checking everything before I did the video. To me, that's my biggest issue is like, shit, I don't know what screws. I don't have a ton of experience with plates, so I can't always say, oh, it's probably going to be 440.345. That's what it always is. I don't have that kind of experience. But again, the ones that fit in the T-clamps, 440 by 0.250, the little skinny ones that are going to go in that sleeve from C&H. And then just try to use whatever screws that come with your optic first. But again, they do send you optics backup screws. And I think these are the same ones that I just used for my own optic that they also send you in case you got a different size or whatnot. All right, but go ahead and drop some feedback or some questions. Let me know. If there's anything I could help you guys with, and as always, find me on Instagram. I can do more direct communication there under _tactical. I'm always open, to talking to everybody, seeing if I can help out, or just, hey, talking about the hobby and shooting and guns or competition, anything like that. But appreciate you guys. Until the next one.